Let's start with that main event. Francis Ngannou retains his heavyweight title against the interim champion Ciryl Gane via unanimous decision.
Say what?
A fight that was mostly fought in the grappling realm, Dominic. Let's look at this fight as a whole, not just the 5 rounds we saw, but everything going into it. The outside factors, all the noise and the lead up, our expectations, the UFC's input, and that they're kind of at war, or not at war, but they don't. Them and Ngannou aren't the best of each other's biggest fans right now, and now the immediate aftermath. You take all of this into account. I want you to tell me right now, what is your biggest takeaway from really this week in UFC 270?
My biggest takeaway from UFC 270 in this week.
Sorry, I'm talking
this
about the
fight.
main event. Yeah.
Yes, this fight. Oh, boy. The confidence that Francis Ngannou had in himself was my takeaway. And we still got to see in this fight the evolution of Francis Ngannou's game. I mean, you look back, literally it'll be 4 years in March when he fought Stipe Miocic. He had this meteoric rise throughout the heavyweight division, was starching everyone, gets dominated in that first title fight, right? And then you have that one of the worst fights ever against Derek Lewis. He loses 2 in a row, and it's like, all right, well, maybe this guy's not quite all the hype that we thought he was. But then he tallies off 4 straight first-round KO TKOs to earn his title fight. Then in that fight with Stipe, he puts together the best all-around performance we've ever seen of him and still gets the knockout victory in the second round. By the way, thank goodness I don't have to see that highlight reel for a few months because they were doing my boy Stipe. I saw that way too much this week. But and then he comes into this fight. He's fighting the near perfect coming in Ciryl Gane, 10-0, undefeated, phenom, interim champion. The tension, the build-up with him in the UFC, him and Fernand Lopez, even him and Ciryl Gane with, former experiences sparring together. And Francis came out and even down 2-0 on the scorecards. I thought he lost those first 2 rounds pretty convincingly, if I'm being honest. He couldn't really find
not a lot of people talking about that 49-46 scorecard and how absurd that is. But
yeah, it was.
I agree with you though.
Yeah, Francis could not find the mark. He couldn't touch Gane, which no one has been able to touch Ciryl Gane. So at that point, I'm like, oh boy, now we're getting into the 3rd round. We don't see Francis go here. What are we going to see? Is Gane going to pull away? Is he going to get an easy decision? Is he going to be able to finish the fight? Shout out to my nosebleeds bet that didn't cash along with my other ones. But then round 3, Francis Ngannou with a freaking Matt Hughes style takedown over Frank Trigg against Ciryl Gane. A huge takedown, a huge moment. He holds top control. Huge 3rd round. Then 4th round, he does it again. Another huge takedown. And I'm just like, what is going on here? We got a 2-2 fight going into the 5th. It doesn't get better than this. He finds himself in a sticky situation. Ciryl Gane takes him down to start the round. I'm like, uh-oh. This is what Gane kind of, he flipped a switch here. He recognized what he can do that he hasn't tried. But then Francis flips positioning, gets on top, escapes a heel hook submission twice, and finishes the fight on top. The evolution of Francis Ngannou's game, and Francis recognized that and had that confidence in himself. As you said on Friday so perfectly, he went all in. He put all the chips on the table for his career. And while there's still a lot of confusion in the aftermath, which we'll get into, the confidence that he had and the evolution that he had in his game and with his coaches at Extreme Couture was the biggest takeaway for me this week. Francis Ngannou, still the baddest man on the planet.
That was very well articulated, Dom.
Thanks.
My big takeaway from this main event, I can't shake the fact that Ciryl Gane looked mortal.
He did. That's true.
And again, I bet money on Francis Ngannou. I thought Francis Ngannou was going to win this fight, but I thought he was going to catch Ciryl Gane.
Yeah.
I thought it was going, just with the power he possessed. I didn't expect him to out-grapple Ciryl Gane. I just didn't really foresee that. And Ciryl Gane apparently did, because he said afterwards that him and Fernand Lopez basically thought this was the only way Ngannou could win this fight, which tells me that
really,
these guys, yeah, they said because they asked him at the post-fight presser, they said, "Did you expect him to come out and grapple you like that?" And they said, "Yes." They said, "Of course, he said this was his only route to victory. He's like, I knew if this fight stood on the feet, I was going to win, and if he could get me
and
down."
he was. Wow.
So that just shows behind closed doors in the gym, these guys know a lot about one another. And I even saw some fighters tweeting like Kamaru Usman and Kevin Lee going, "Hey, how about that wrestling? Bet you guys didn't know about that." So maybe this has just been kind of a unspoken truth about Francis Ngannou's game, this like secret skill that he's possessed, and maybe the guy's just a lot more well-rounded than we thought. Now, I will just say, I feel like his size was a big advantage here when it came to that. He used his strength to really overpower Gane in some of those pivotal moments, some of those pivotal sprawls where he got top position after being on the bottom was a lot due to just simply his strength. Not that he didn't have good technique or anything, but that he was just a bigger, stronger opponent. It's a lot like when Blachowicz fought Adesanya, and Adesanya seemed a bit powerless at times.
Yep.
That was kind of Gane here. Gane, when he was on his back, Gane really couldn't get out of that position. And all the credit to Francis Ngannou for implementing that game plan, sticking to it. I mean, really, it might not even been the game plan going in. I mean, for 2 rounds, Francis was landing at like a 30% rate, which was half of what Gane was.
Yeah, Gane was like 65 plus.
I mean, Gane looked like he was just in a groove, was going to I was thinking, okay, we're going to get the 5-round Ciryl Gane experience.
Yeah.
And he's going to take that belt. But all credit to Ngannou for making the switch, if that was not the original game plan, I should say, and at least introducing it in round 3 and giving himself enough time to kind of win this fight convincingly at the end. It was so strange.
And the cardio held up too,
Well, he didn't look great cardio-wise. I mean, he was definitely tired, and especially on the feet, it really did, his credit to him for being able to wrestle in those 3 rounds.
Exactly. Yeah.
But once the fight was on the feet, rounds 3 through 5,
slow.
He was basically a prone target. His hands were down, breathing heavy, and wrestling is very much one of the most hardest things to do in MMA on terms of on your cardio.
Yeah.
But he did it well, and for Ciryl Gane, who I thought was the most well-rounded heavyweight we've ever seen. Now you look at this and you kind of go, well, there's some holes there. There's some holes. And, he did have the kickboxing background, but he looked much better on the ground in different fights. And I think it all came down to every fight so far in Ciryl Gane's career, he has dictated when and where that fight went.
Yes.
He dictated how it went there. When he wanted to go to the ground, he did. But that's because he was prepared to go to the ground because he knew what he wanted to do on the ground, and then he did it. Here, not the case. Ngannou slammed him, held him down, and he at times looked a little lost.
Perfect way to put it. Yeah.
So I still think Ciryl Gane is going to be here to stay for a long time.
Oh, yeah.
We may see this fight run back again. However, I think this is kind of what we'll transition.
Now we're getting into the future.
Let's talk about the immediate aftermath, Dominic.
And by immediate, we mean literally right after the winner was announced.
So I feel like my laugh right there was the laugh Dana did when he's like, I don't give a fuck.
That's exactly what it sounded like. And Dana
But,
sure didn't last night.
it was not Dana White that put the belt around Francis Ngannou's waist. And at first I was like, okay, maybe he had something to do. Maybe he was handling something. He's got a lot of
Busy
hands
man.
and a lot of
Yeah.
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 Then he didn't show up to the post-fight press conference, and I don't know the last time he didn't show up to a UFC pay-per-view press conference, but I believe it was UFC 228, Dominic. And do you know what happened in the main event of that card?
You're going to have to enlighten me because my mind is blanking.
Tyron Woodley starched Darren Till, another matchup where Dana had a pretty clear favorite, and Darren Till going in and was not a big fan of the champion, Tyron Woodley. So I believe that's the last time he missed a pay-per-view post-presser. I remember that specifically.
And quickly.
Yeah.
Well, just so everyone knows, Dana was in fact there to put the belt on Davis and Figueiredo, which we'll get into next. But I just wanted to put that out there so you all know. Okay.
Yes. Okay. So, give me your thoughts on that first. Is that silence as deafening to you as it was to me?
Yes, they got together, right? The refs got their arms, and Bruce is getting ready to announce. And I saw Mick Maynard and I texted immediately in the group chat, and I said, Dana isn't doing the belt. Noah emphasized that message in the group chat.
Because I was literally typing the same thing.
And I'm like, okay, this isn't good. This isn't good because all of this contract shit going into the fight was a mess. And, well, I even said on Friday, I felt as if Ciryl was the champion going into this fight. It just felt like all the eggs were in the Ciryl Gane basket, in my opinion, in terms of the marketing and like where the UFC wanted to at least transition to for the future of the division. And Francis comes out, and maybe in the UFC's head, I'm not saying they wanted Francis to lose, but they might have been thinking we can do more with Gane if he becomes the champion, then we can just kind of get rid of Ngannou with all this contract crap. But, worst case, Ngannou still wins, but he gets a big KO. It's a big deal. Everybody goes nuts. But not only did Francis win, he didn't get a big KO, Noah. He went 5 rounds. He utilized grappling. And it was just a bad combination for old Dana White in the UFC last night at UFC 270. And the fact that he didn't come to the press conference, I think, is super telling. The MMA Twitter community and the media was going nuts about this, seeing, this is quite telling. Dana's not here, so on and so forth. So I don't know what's going to happen here because I know Ngannou was asked by someone, in 1 year from now, January of 2023, you can become a free agent, or are you okay with sitting out a year? And Francis goes, well, I fought 3 times in 3 years, so what's another year if I sit out? And then he kind of just goes on to where he doesn't have any immediate things on what he wants to do. And by the way, people, he said he had an MCL tear 3 weeks ago. Came into this fight with torn MCL.
Well, let me ask you a question, Dominic, just to keep things on track. So are you under the impression that the bigger reason for the silence from Dana White, the bigger reason for the UFC and Dana White to kind of remove themselves from any sort of celebration of Ngannou, was it more because of the performance itself, the fight itself, or because of the iffy contract negotiation stuff coming in?
I think it is predominantly the iffy contract negotiations coming in, and when you match that with the way in which Ngannou won, it was not the formula they were looking for.
It's so weird, Dominic, because this fight was so interesting to watch, but if I was someone who was not aware of all the stuff going in and didn't know anything about these two, I'd probably be pretty bored by the fight.
Mm-hmm.
It's a pretty dull fight. Not going to be a rewatchable one, I don't think.
Yeah.
But considering everything we know about these guys and all the hype behind it, it was very interesting to watch just because it was so unexpected, the turns it took and whatnot. So it held my interest. But for Dana White, I'm wondering if that's how he felt. If he was like, when you get like a Usman versus Covington one, where it's two natural wrestlers and they have like this kind of sloppy kickboxing fight, we love the hell out of it because it's exciting. It's two guys just in each other's face, beating the shit out of each other. Even if it's not the most technical, it's awesome.
Yes.
But here you get two natural strikers having a wrestling match. Doesn't necessarily carry the same level of excitement. So I don't know if the bigger reason for this stuff in the aftermath is attributed to the contract stuff or to the fact that the fight went the way it did. But I will just say that I, for one, don't really see it the way you did in the lead up. I thought I was actually surprised that I felt like the marketing and everything was very even, very fair. I didn't really get the sense that Gane was champion at all. I felt like Dana himself in interviews was doing a pretty good job of talking up Ngannou. I mean, he even kind of himself used the contract negotiations as a reason for why this was such a big fight for Ngannou, which is kind of crazy when you think about it. But I do think that this fallout, this immediate aftermath, is going to have longer term repercussions, and it's going to be a bit of a snowball effect here potentially. Because make no mistake, like I said on Friday, Ngannou would put all his chips on the table. He said, "I'm going all in. I'm betting on myself," and he won. But in order to win, there's got to be a payoff. There's got to be someone paying up for putting all those chips in. The UFC now need to give him the money he's looking for, the opportunities he's looking for. But are they going to use that performance and the sort of lackluster fight around it as a reason to try and not give him that? That's kind of the question I have moving forward.
Yeah, it's 100% going to be used. I mean, and when you get into that, it's like, okay, so if we do in fact just go a whole nother year without Francis Ngannou, what the hell do you do with the heavyweight title then, Noah, at that point?
It sounds like an interim title will be introduced again, and you're going to do John Jones versus Stipe.
Man.
Which, don't get me wrong, I'll love the hell out of that fight and would be excited for it, but I wouldn't like it if it was under these circumstances.
And then we're getting to the point where, okay, so say that does happen, but then January 2023 rolls around, and Ngannou is officially done with his contract, and then he just chooses to relinquish the belt and leave. I mean, this is a situation we've not really ever been in the UFC, at least not with the top tier elite talents of Francis Ngannou, the face of a division.
Not a current sitting champion and one in the biggest weight class in the whole company.
Yes.
Let me ask you this then. If you had to predict right now, does he re-up with the UFC or does he wait out this contract and go elsewhere? What do you think he does right now?
In the immediate aftermath, I think he waits it out. I think we don't see him again for a whole year. And too, he kept saying that he wants to do this boxing thing, and obviously he wanted the UFC to be a part of it. The UFC is going to want no part of that now. They're going to want no part of promoting Francis Ngannou versus Tyson Fury, especially after the way in which he won this fight. I just don't think that they're going to want to do it for him. I don't think they're going to view it as a good payoff for the company. So there is so much tension between Ngannou and his team in the UFC right now, and I thought it was going to get a little better, win or lose, because I thought if he won, he was going to have this huge performance, right? Get a KO, or if he loses, then the UFC can, okay, let's move on. But no, he won and didn't put on an impressive performance. So I think there's even more tension now than there was going into the fight Saturday night, which is, I wouldn't have thought that in a million years.
Here's a quote: "Time heals all wounds." I think Dana and the boys were licking their wounds last night.
Yeah.
I think they were a bit pouty. And the reason why, Dominic, is because I think they're going to end up paying him. That's why.
I hope so.
I think this is gonna get worked out.
I do.
It might take a while. We might not see Ngannou again till August, September, October, which sucks. But I think eventually it gets worked out. Now the big thing is to me is that I still have a hard time believing that the UFC will commit to for Ngannou to have any sort of boxing fight with Tyson Fury or anybody really.
I'd be shocked.
But Tyson Fury seems to want it. He called him out again on Twitter last night.
Did he? After the win?
He said, if you want to make some real money, come fight the Gypsy King or something like that. So,
yeah.
I think that it would be short-sighted of us to say never on that, only because if the heavyweight champion of boxing wants it, look at what happened with Mayweather and McGregor. Who would have ever thought that would have happened? And now I know Ngannou is not the same star as Mayweather, but Tyson Fury is not the same star as Mayweather. It's not. It doesn't have to be that.
It's a lower tiered version of it. Yes,
and the UFC would still be able to have their part in helping promote it. Yeah. So you know what? I mean, as crazy as it sounds, Dominic, I think this gets worked out, and this might be a bit of me putting like a little bow on this. Maybe it's not going to go as clean. I understand right now it's like the night is darkest before morning. You know. I just think they'll take some time. It'll get worked out. There might be some words shared. Dana might do some interviews here soon, and he may not say some very nice things about Ngannou's performance. But like I can just see it right now. Dana's going to go on some show or something. He's going to say, "You're complaining about contracts, and you go out there and put a performance like that, and have people booing you out of the octagon." I don't know. It reminds me of like the Tyron Woodley kind of a little bit situation. But I think eventually they sit down. The UFC recognizes he has the leverage because he's the heavyweight champion of the world.
Yeah.
How is it going to look if he doesn't lose that belt? He sits out for a year, leaves, thereby basically, yes, he would be relinquishing the belt. But then he leaves without being beaten. Like, you just lost your sitting heavyweight champion to go do whatever. And he can say, I'm the heavyweight champion of the UFC. I never got beat. So I think they come to their senses in a way. They give him the big time money he's looking for. And I think by giving him that money, they need to try to find the dividends to make that pay off. Thereby, Tyson Fury boxing fight might end up being kind of that chance to do that. And I'm going to make a prediction. We see Ngannou in the fall.
Okay.
Prediction number 1, John Jones. Prediction number 2, Ngannou boxes Tyson Fury in 2023.
Can I just pose one question off that real quick before we transition?
Sure.
Being that you foresee that boxing fight happening in 2023, does that mean to you that Francis would have to beat John Jones in order for that fight to happen?
Yes. Because there is no reason. That fight makes no sense.
If he loses.
If he's not the heavyweight champion of the world. It doesn't really make sense anyways, if we're being honest. But in terms of like how you sell it, you sell the best boxer in the world, the champion of the heavyweight division in boxing, going up against the number 1 contender in the UFC. That doesn't make a lot of sense.
Doesn't work. Yeah.
Right. So maybe I'm wrong. Maybe that's not. Maybe they don't even. Maybe they do the interim title fight in that same time frame, July, August, September. John Jones, Stipe, and then sometime beginning of 2023, Ngannou boxes Fury, and then he'll end up having to fight the winner of that interim title fight. Now, I know that doesn't sound great because they have a division held up, but that's how that shit goes. Remember how long McGregor, the stuff with, I mean, how long did he hold on to that belt at lightweight without defending it?
Over a full year.
I mean, it was well over.
Yeah.
He won it at UFC 205. he was relinquished, or I guess stripped from him at UFC 223 when Khabib fought Ally Quina.
Yeah.
That's 18 months essentially.
Yeah.
I
Crazy.
mean, it can happen.
But for what it's worth, I hope that what you just said in terms of the UFC and Francis coming to terms, I hope that is the case. I do.
Yeah, it might be a bit of a peachy, a picture perfect ending, but I really believe the UFC. It's better to have Ngannou in house than anywhere else. It's just,
yes.
I hope they come to their senses, though.
Maybe.